to speak to you right now about why I think the carvings in Liverpool, Nova Scotia, on the beach, are indeed Templar. In Curse of Oak Island, Season 10, Episode 11, Oh Well, Corjan Mol investigated the shoreline with Isaac and also Rick Lagina and Charles Barkhouse. There was a time when there was understandable resistance to the thought of a Templar presence on Oak Island. But all of that has changed. We can't ignore the monumental earthworks on the island that date back to the 12th and 13th centuries. We cannot ignore the medieval chisels, tools that have been found dating back to the Templar period. The time for doubt on this subject has ended with the incredible archaeological finds and megastructures on the island and those found in Nova Scotia, of the growing circle of evidence for medieval travel to North America. Why must we consider locations like Ross Castle? Because it is a repeated MO that is recognizable as the hand of the Knights Templar or their late medieval descendants. This pattern is extended from Newfoundland, the Axon Meadows, Viking settlement, down the coast to Oak Island, all the way down the coastline into Westford, Massachusetts, to the Newport Tower of Rhode Island, are all evidence of a similar hand, similar engineering knowledge, similar building knowledge, architectural symbols that all go back to Western Europe. As some of you know, I've just finished filming with Luca Santoni, documentary filmmaker, episodes 3 and 4 of his Templar series, which is on Amazon Prime USA and UK. Episode 3, The Sinclair Legacy, and Episode 4, Gudrid the Fair, covers interconnecting information that applies to the finds on the east coast of America. What other evidence is there to support this? Local legends of early contact with explorers were passed down the centuries by the Mi'kmaq and other indigenous nations. It's estimated that we've lost 90% of secular and chivalrous books of the medieval era. That's a great cultural tragedy. So what information and maps did we lose that could have helped us understand the murky depths of pre-Columbian contact with the indigenous nations of North America? In absence of records, we have a growing debris field of the medieval world scattered down the east coast of America, with further locations along the St. Lawrence River Valley, westward and into the shores of the Great Lakes, along known indigenous trading routes and hunting grounds. Why were Templars living and trading in these locations? Because that's where the food was. The land had been trodden on in that area since the Ice Age melt by North Americans for thousands of years. Heritage hunting grounds, heritage trading routes with other tribes, warmer climes. It would have been way too hard for the Templars to reinvent the wheel and establish new paths of travel. So the cross between the two peoples, trading partners, marriage partners, and borrowing culture from each other, the culture of survival in a plentiful, if sometimes harsh environment. The Templars had a very strong reason to strike out and find safer ground. The absence of other competitive Europeans over resources, gold, fur, other commodities we are yet to discover, and of course, persecution by enemies. It took hundreds of years and repeated missions to create what we are seeing on Oak Island and further down the coastline and inland. This was not a bus schedule. You could not set your watch by it. Planning a voyage like these could take up to 3 years. Ships and men would have perished. Not everyone made it on the way over, and not everyone came home, either by choice, illness, accident, warring tribal issues. Politics is the same there as anywhere. People are people, and tribes fought amongst each other. It's important to understand the concept of triangulation in research, where proximity of objects found, carvings and potential foundation stones, are discovered within reachable stretch of walking. And of course, the waterways were the path of travel, and it was far safer. So what are some of the items that I've been discussing as far as evidence of Templars on Oak Island and the surrounding area? That stone road and platform, dated to 1200 by Dr. Ian Spooner, is immense. And of course, we all saw season 9, where Corjan Mol took the team to Portugal and were able to view the remains of a conserved Roman road. Those construction techniques were known of during the Templar period, and they would have brought that engineering understanding and created that platform and road for a very large task of unloading precious cargo from a ship to hide a treasure and to sustain themselves while they themselves were involved in setting up a holy island. Romantically, a holy island of Avalon, very Arthurian. Arthurian tales were flourishing during the time of the Templars. I cover a lot of that ground in my first book. The Templars were the real life version of the Knights of the Round Table, but they were recreating the New Jerusalem in North America. What captured my attention were the medieval chisels for fine stone carving that had been found on Oak Island. The well on Lot 26, dated to 1028, that's Gudrid's time period. Gudrid of the Vinland sagas. The bigger picture of settlement activity is galloping down the racetrack now. Why isn't there more domestic debris from those time periods? Well, a ship is a small place packed with people, with goods for survival and for hopefully for trading, maybe even animals. So the last thing you want to do is bring over too much stuff. You wouldn't be throwing away your earthen vessels, your pottery, you would not be doing that. You'd be taking those things with you. Domestic objects would have been there in such small numbers so that they would easily disappear. So of course I am leading up to something here. Gretchen, what's your point? Getting to that. I'd like to talk about the carvings in Liverpool, Nova Scotia. This brings us to the crux of this video. Who carved the Liverpool, Nova Scotia stone? This may be controversial to some, and I know that, and I'm okay with that, but just hear me out. A few years back, Rick and the team went to Dome Prison in France. Truly a brutal place where Templars that had been arrested were kept in dire conditions. And they carved rather, desperately on the walls their most sacred of ideas, of heraldry that matches Rochefoucauld links, one of the most powerful families in France. It was said that the Templars had used their teeth to carve into the granite those symbols. I will differ with that based on my own knowledge of the culture of imprisoning nobility. The scholarship around the carvings and the symbols was very well done in that episode. There is a culture that I'm aware of when it comes to nobility, which these men were. These men were from noble houses. So what would happen in any situation where you had arrested a nobleman is that in good behavior, you were given a dulled knife with which you could cut bread with, if there was something available for, if you had bread or other such food, that having a knife would make it easy. So what they would do is take that knife, and it would have been the knife that they used to carve those symbols at Dome Prison with. So I hope that makes sense. If you take a tooth, if you take bone, and you try to carve a harder surface with it, you're going to fail, because that softer carving tool is just going to, it's going to powder up and it's going to disappear pretty quickly. So prisoners of higher status were given knives on good behavior. When I was researching my second book, The Templar Quest to North America, I visited Rocha Cree State Park. I wanted to rule out that the carvings I was seeing 90 miles north, while I was validating a Templar location there, were not attributable to Native Americans. So I visited Rocha Cree State Park, and the cliff face is soft. The imagery is definitely that of the philosophy, the culture of the peoples that were living in that area before Europeans arrived. Unfortunately, when Europeans did arrive, they started carving their name and date on the wall of art, this wall of philosophy that might have been used to educate their younger tribal members, to talk about their creation stories, their religion. It's a little bit defaced, but you can see the gist of it. It's difficult to compare these carvings in Liverpool, Nova Scotia, that are so far away and distant. So I appreciate the difficulty there, but I just wanted to show you an example of the tools matter, that the stone you're carving on matters. You have to have the right tool for the right job to tackle stone if you're going to leave messages in stone. When looking at the carvings of the Liverpool, Nova Scotia stone, it is granite, it is very hard, and if you were a Native American, you would have had a very sharp counter stone chisel to make that happen. And I'm just not buying it. I'm not buying it. I don't think that you can say the Liverpool stone is carved by the original culture there. I've consulted with a professional stone carver, stone mason, and sculptor who did work with Native Americans as well. And he told me that a well-made chisel with heavy use of good quality ore could last 100 years or more, and it would have been expensive and uncommon. Stonemasons, and perhaps a cathedral builder or a castle builder in the company of Templars, as necessary personnel, would have known where his tools were all the time, and it would have been this way for hundreds of years. With the shortage of space on a ship and no backup, well, these objects would have been priceless and not up for trading. The Liverpool stone was carved by Europeans due to the fact that indigenous people did not have access to carving chisels and mallets required for precise patterns that Europeans were used to producing, nor the training to do so. Not until the 1700s, when missionaries worked to convert Mi'kmaq peoples and used ideograms to explain abstract ideas. Having had the privilege of being a Mohican reservation a few years ago, I felt like I absorbed so much, learned so much. What a civilized culture. What was so touching to me was how they took, under pressure, of course, Christian symbols, which they're very proud of. You know, the Mohican tribe in Wisconsin is proud of their Christian adopted traditions and how they have blended those traditions in with their prior cultures is a beautiful thing. While I am sitting here stating that those carvings on the coastline of Liverpool, Nova Scotia, are European Templar. And in the second video, I hope that you'll understand to a greater level why I am so avidly certain of this. It is also necessary to state what civilized and beautiful people the indigenous nations are of North America. Completely deserving in every opportunity anyone else can be afforded under the rule of law. We the people. So, getting back to this, absolutely at some point, some gifted First Nations tribal member is going to want to know how to use that chisel because it's an art form, transmitting information, philosophy, who you are, where you live, what you thought, what you hope for, and would have been trained how to use it. So I understand that there are many carved stones on that beach. I wouldn't doubt for a moment that there are a good number that actually are carved by the peoples. Comparing the Overton stone to the other carvings is interesting. The other carvings are very faded, and you get that type of fading with time and, of course, bad weather. But the Overton stone is not too far off the coastline, so it would have been subjected to some pretty dreadful weather over the centuries. To me, based on the crispness of and clarity of the carving and the lines, that's got to be anywhere from 1550s up through Templar descendants of the 1650s. Comparing these carvings, Liverpool is medieval. These locations in proximity of each other, carvings, stylistic commonality, all support each other to create a cohesive, broad picture scattered down the east coast of North America that can't be dismissed. One of the symbols on the Liverpool stone is the circle dissected with a line. This symbol can be seen on the Westford Knight in Massachusetts. It is the badge of Clan Gun of Scotland. Stylistically, and there are a few ways to interpret that symbol, but I'll get into that in the next video, part 2. If you would like to know more about Sir James Gunn, whose effigy this is in the photograph, please watch Gudrid the Fair on Amazon Prime in the USA and UK, and The Sinclair Legacy, Episode 3 of Templars by Luca Santoni. The two films document the Zeno Brothers' association with Prince Henry Sinclair and his voyages to North America in the 1380s up to 1398. The Sinclair voyages met with friendly and dangerous peoples in their hoped-for New Jerusalem. Ross Castle in Nova Scotia is attributed to Prince Henry Sinclair of the late 1300s. Templarism was part of his inherited culture. Thank you so much for following me through the duration of the video. Part 2 will be following soon. If you've enjoyed my research, please consider subscribing to my channel and like the video. Better yet, as well, share, please, with your friends. It is a form of donation in itself to like and subscribe. To those of you who are my patrons, thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate you very much. If you'd like to contribute to my work, go to patreon.com and sign up as a patron. If you'd like to make a one-off donation on my website, gretchencornwall.com, there is a donation button there as well. Take care, respect yourself, respect others, and I look forward to sharing more of the Templar world with you in the near future.